Medical Group beside me. I have a special guest today. Just started with Core about 3 months ago, has grown tremendously, helped the company grow tremendously. And then, of course, Mel Chansey, he could not help himself. He could not watch this podcast. Originally, it was going to be me and Jared, but
I mean, I thought I was the special guest, and then you took that left-hand turn on me, and
you are the special,
here we are
special
with Jared,
guest.
right?
You're very
The
special.
guest. Always.
Jared's on the other coast from us, runs an office over there, has been instrumental, super helpful. Mel and him have been friends for quite some time. So, bro, thank you for coming on.
Thank you,
today.
Sid. Appreciate that, brother.
And so today, Mel and I decided to bring on Jared to kind of talk about what his experience has been kind of coming aboard at Core, what his conversations are like with our patients, and kind of how he feels about our entire process. So can you give us a quick background on yourself?
So I was in the military for about 7 years. I was a combat medic in the United States Army. When I got out of there, I worked for the VA for about a year. Then I kind of did my own thing. Wanted to get back into medical. Didn't really work out. Went my own route, and then here we are today. That's the best part of my life right now, man.
It's been great. We talk about this quite a bit when we're going through the training process like we are right now with Brett. It's kind of nerve-wracking because you come aboard at the company and there's so many amazing staff members, right, that are so good at their job, and it's really intimidating for that first few days when you're learning the process and trying to come aboard, and then all of a sudden you realize how helpful you are to the person on the other side of the phone, and it builds your confidence so quickly. You want to talk a little bit about that transition?
So what I think you're talking about is kind of you're making that commonality, that connection with the patient.
Exactly right.
So, you get, when I signed on with Core, I had no idea. Kind of Mel kind of gave me the insight as to what was going on. Talked to my patient coordinator, Travis now, amazing. But it's that same thing, man. There's that fear, you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get informed, once you get educated, you see how easy the process is. You see kind of where Core wants to take it, how they want to help you. Everything else falls into line, man. It's like I said, it's the best thing that I've ever done for my own health and wellness.
Well, it worked out good for you because you were a patient of ours before, and my friend and a patient, and you'd always hear a Core, and I'd FaceTime you at Sydney, and you'd see the fellas and stuff like that, and then getting the opportunity to jump on, when the timing was right, and the way you did, and you came over and trained, and you've seen the family that Sydney has built. I've been by his side, and Sydney has built this Core medical family, which flows into our patients, and you got to experience that and feel it. Now I watch you doing it constantly in my backyard,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so there's a few different divisions at Core. If you're hearing this for the first time, you're not a patient, you are a patient. The process at Core is you come aboard, you speak with a patient specialist that educates you through the process, which is the division that Jared's in. And the way I like to explain Core Medical is, and I have this image that I draw up. You can do it in your head. Take a picture of a bicycle, and that bicycle, has the wheels, which are the sales guys, the patient coordinators, right? The guys that are kind of explaining the process, and they're educators now. I take that back. They're not salesmen. They educate you on what's going to work, right? And then you have the frame of the bike, which is the marketing and kind of what kind of helps everything come together, right? And then you have the handlebars, which is important. Our MAs, our HR directors, those are all the components to that bicycle.
Yeah,
but that bike doesn't move anywhere without that ground under that bicycle. And that's what that patient specialist division is. It's that pavement that bike moves on, because without them, we're in trouble.
No doubt.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's a super important division in the company. And some people decide to grow into that patient coordinator position. And I think that Jared, the way that he's kind of figuring this out, that might be his next step, which is going to be amazing, right? Take some time to get there, but they work so well together. I mean, you can kind of talk about how those patient coordinators and the onboarding specialists, how you guys are such a team.
Yeah, it definitely is a team, man. And the only other time that I've ever experienced this kind of camaraderie, this fellowship amongst work environments was in the military, man. This is the closest thing that I've found that's military-like, you know what I mean? Just that bond between the people, and everybody really is stoked to help everybody out, man.
Well, that was one of the reasons why Sid kept everything home base here in Boca Raton, right? The offices, everybody's working. when we started, 5, 6 guys, 10 guys, 12 guys, 6 years later,
60.
60 people, right? So, and I watched him do that way, and it worked because everybody's hanging with each other. You guys are all in the same office, and that camaraderie, and then everybody's hanging out with each other afterwards. Sid's house, the beach, the same thing. Well, I do the same thing on my coast, and here it was perfect timing, right? And Sid's like, man, the first person we outsourced was you. And that timing was right. Now you're over on my coast over there, and we built an office over there, and here we go. Like the same thing.
Yeah, I mean that for me, the hiring process has become more and more difficult as time has gone on for multiple reasons. I don't need to get into that, but the fact that we got to diversify over there, and like you're there to support the office, and now Jared's going to be, in charge of bringing in some guys there, teaching them, managing them. It's great because now we're in a different pool of being able to employ and to find some other people and give some great opportunities. And it's interesting. Like you watch, like for Jared came in and you go through that stage of, it's not fear. It's that stage of like, I just want to do real good because you have no other choice because of what you're surrounded by, right? You have like the Davids and the Mikes, and then you talk about the patient coordinators like Travis, Brandon, Nick, all those guys. They're so dedicated to their work, right? Mm-hmm. And when you come aboard, you watch that, and I think that's the most intimidating factor from the outside looking in,
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really important that when our patients call us, that they're super educated. It takes a special person to have that patience.
Yeah.
I'm not the best at that job. Like if I had to do something for this company as an employee, that probably wouldn't be the best place.
Yeah, for your spot. Yeah,
because
of
I'm
course.
a little
bit,
but
you're moving too fast.
I mean, talk about the onboarding process. Talk about how you explain things to people.
So I deal with a lot of veterans. I deal with a lot of non-veterans as well. But the biggest thing is people call in and they're kind of at their wits' end. They've exhausted all their opportunity, or their whatever they were trying to do. They've exhausted all routes, whether it be the VA, their general practitioner. They just want help. They're frustrated. You know what I mean? They've gone this route with other people. They've got answers that they didn't like. So, when we talk to them, I explain the process to them. I tell them, how it works, what our onboarding process looks like, how we get everybody qualified. And it all starts with that blood work, man. The blood work's the key. Sometimes people go to their general practitioner or the VA, like I said, and they're telling them they're good. They're too young to be on TRT or hormone replacement therapy. And that couldn't be any further from the truth in some cases. Mm-hmm. We got to get that blood work done. We got to see what's going on.
Like I told you when you were coming in, you're calling, they're coming to the company. They're not coming to the company and calling and inquiring because they're feeling 100%. We're not going to the dentist unless something happens, right? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
So they're feeling it right there. So, when you're finding your niche, it's when you get that patient that opens up to you on the other end of the line and they're comfortable with that, that's an amazing feeling on our end, right?
For sure.
Because they're trusting you.
Absolutely.
They're telling you how they're feeling. That's huge. And that's how I've been, hands-on with my patients, now that it's grown so big, and you guys are seeing it on that end. That connection right there makes a huge difference. Now they feel very comfortable for the next steps, correct?
Sure, absolutely. And you're getting to help somebody, man. And when you can kind of find that bond, I always tell people my story when I talk to them. And I think it kind of makes them feel good. You know what I mean? It makes them feel better about the situation because there's other people out there that are dealing with the same thing. You're not alone in this situation.
Yeah, the interesting thing on Mel's note is that like when a gentleman calls and they're like, hey, I can't play with my kids, I'm exhausted, right? Or, I can't have sex with my wife, and they're super vulnerable like that. That's a hard thing to do. That first step's a hard thing to do.
100%.
And for me, I'm not shy with those people, and that's really what the core community is kind of like. We've kind of bred to be vulnerable on our side too. Like you have Mike, who has been diagnosed with being bipolar, and he tells every patient, I can name every medication. He can name every medication the VA gave them, but he's only on one med and TRT, and he's balanced, and there's a lot of concern on our medical staff side when they see our DocuSign, which is really important to fill out, right? Sure. And there's like 20 medications on there. Seriously, we've seen 20 medications from the VA to treat who knows what, because one's waking them up, one's keeping them, putting them to sleep. One of them's killing this pain, one of them's killing that pain. I mean, we've seen some crazy stuff. you know, a lot of times they've had you know, minor or major trauma, right? And that trauma doesn't even have to be physical trauma; it can be mental trauma. Seeing someone who you deployed with get blown up, right,
Yeah,
Jared? I mean,
yeah.
and unfortunately, that puts a lot of strain on our entire system. And some testosterone replacement therapy can just change that. I mean, how many stories have you heard? You've been here long enough to have
Jeez.
some success
Already,
stories, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
How,
Yeah.
how long now are you here?
About 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
But in 3 months, you're moving and grooving. I mean, you
I mean,
are. You've
and
been rocking. I mean, I see it because you live, 10 minutes from me.
yeah.
But I mean, you're doing what I used to do. Walking away, I'd get a text or something from a patient, and I'd walk away from Sydney. We'd be out on the boat, and he'd be like, "I go, I got a patient." He'd go, "Okay." They'd hold everything up for me, right?
Yeah.
And but it's exciting, right?
For sure.
And that's what I get. And they become our family, right? I got so many people that are in my phone. I can't even. Me and Sid were talking, man. Do I get another phone? Do I get because what's coming up? And I'm like, no, I can only handle one. I lose this one. And they'll FaceTime me out of the blue, and you see it, and I'll answer.
Yeah.
We'll be at the beach, and it's just so cool. It's the give back is so cool, and it's cool to see it on our end over here from the new hirees to the, like Sydney said, there's a process that everybody does over here, right? And we're excited when we see somebody come in and have that passion. It's great.
Absolutely. And another thing too, the patient relationships is really the key. We give out all our personal cell phone numbers to our patients because stuff comes up after hours or on the weekends, and I want to make sure that someone, if they're unsure about something, I want to make sure that they can get a hold of somebody. We can get the answers to them that they need. And that's why we do that, man. I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of other people, a lot of other clinics.
So I had an interesting conversation with a patient last week, and I'm going to tell you guys this, and I guess a lot of people are about to find out. I call every week about 10 new patients that are signed up because I want to get their feedback on it, right? And I'll pick like 3 from youth, and I say, hey, just do me a favor, keep this phone call between the two of us. Just want to know how my staff is doing and what's going on. I've gotten I haven't had any bad feedback from that ever, and it's super impactful to that patient to have that second voice from the owner, and I do it at my house, and just explain it. And someone said to me the other day this. They said, I went to LabCorp at 7:30 in the morning, and they couldn't figure out how to use my requisition form. But I had the patient, my onboarding specialist's cell phone number, and at no other company could I have called and got that explained to and sent over because I had the guy's personal cell phone number.
Right, yeah.
And I drove 30 minutes to the place, and he said, just because, and they answered the phone on like the second ring right away at 7:30 in the morning. And I was like, well, yeah, that's amazing. And the guy's like, how I probably wouldn't have gotten that blood work done if I couldn't get in contact with somebody.
Yeah.
So those minor little fixes, man,
Cool.
Yeah, it's been great. And like Mel and I will get, text messages. We've got them on Jerry. We get them on the patient coordinators. And it'll be these like amazing paragraphs about how great they are. You can't send it to them because it blows their head up,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So it's
baby steps with these guys.
Baby
for
steps.
Sure.
But like, it's great. And like we love getting those notes. I mean, they're great. Like, Christmas time comes around and you'll see this. You're getting gifts showing up at your house and you're like, who's this from? And then you don't even, we have a lot of patients. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but you don't even know the name on the card. And you're like, and then you're like, oh shit, you got to check Salesforce. And you're like, oh my gosh, this patient, like I spoke to like 7 months ago, reminded me. You get these notes from people's kids saying, I got my dad back. It's crazy. And it all starts in that division.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk to you a little bit about, tell me some of the concerns that you're hearing about patients when they come aboard. Like, what are some of the biggest issues? Not like chief complaints like ED and stuff like that, but what kind of holds some people up, other than like the obvious, which we'll talk about in a second, which is finance. What's kind of holding people up? And like my advice always is just get the blood work done, and we'll make decisions from there because now we have something credible. But what are some of the holdups that you see? In that beginning phase that you can kind of talk to people about to kind of overcome that concern in advance by seeing this podcast?
Sure. Yeah. So one of the biggest things that I've seen and experienced too is there's kind of a stigma associated with this treatment, and it couldn't be any further from the truth. So a lot of people say, what is testosterone? They don't even know necessarily. They associate it with some kind of illegal type of steroid
Okay.
or something of that nature. It's not. We're just simply replacing what you're lacking. Whatever you're lacking, whatever imbalance it is, we're replacing that. We're finding a protocol, a tailor-made protocol to specifically fit you, the patient.
Yep.
And that's kind of one of the biggest things I see. The other thing is also what happens. I got a friend that was just taking testosterone. He was getting it other than legal means. What if I take it and it's not for me? Or what if I take it and I stop taking it? Where am I at now? Well, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of the protocols that we put into place. We've got supportive meds to go with those things, those protocols. Mm-hmm. So we're keeping somebody on track. We're constantly monitoring their blood work, making sure that the protocol is right for them. It's just one.
So the objective that I hear a lot of, and I kind of wanted to talk about today, and we are not a pushy HRT clinic. Like, when I do these big speaking engagements, Mel, I go on stage and I say, hey guys, listen, we do a lot of telemedicine. We're licensed, DA license. Our doctors are licensed in 43 states. We're part of the Interstate Compact of Medicine. We've done a lot of work to be able to do telemedicine to make things easier, because from our experience, telemedicine has been a more effective way to manage people and have more contact on people than it is having them come into one of the offices, wait 45 minutes, be in a rush when they get in there in their home. They're vulnerable, right? What I've said to people, and I say it all the time, if you're more comfortable going to a clinic that's in your in your area, let me know. I'll help you find the right one, right? So we're not that pushy, but I wanted to get that clear before I go into the following statement. A lot of people are like, well, you know what? I want my wife to be a part of this decision. Great. Unfortunately, when we get on the phone with a wife, we're basically we explain to them, hey, your husband has told me the symptoms that's going on inside your household, right?
Yeah.
It's affecting your household.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from experience, he'll be more productive at work, with the kids, with you. But unfortunately, the conversation kind of stops here because we don't have that blood work in place. So I don't know any wife in the world that doesn't want to keep their husband happy and healthy.
Right.
So we should get that blood work done and then reevaluate this conversation, or be a part of our telemedicine call.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With your husband. And a lot of times the wife at that point gets on the telemedicine call, and then what happens? She
signs up as well.
She signs up with CORE as well. And one of our biggest mistakes at CORE is, when we talk about CORE Medical, we don't talk about females enough. Right? And there's a lot to be said there. I mean, how many you've had some experiences with signing up both people on the first go around?
Absolutely,
yeah. With wives, my little Mel, 44. She's gonna be 45 in August. She's been a patient of ours for 3-4 years now. Early menopause because we don't have a child together and stuff, and she started feeling it. And now, Betsy got her clicking. Even though Betsy goes, she goes, you're one of the world's hardest patients, because she's in that crazy switching time, right? So her, the progesterone's always getting thrown off and stuff. But I mean, she couldn't do without it.
So what are the conversations like when you're speaking to a husband and a wife on the phone? Like how does that go typically?
Usually, if they're in the same room, I can hear the spouse in the background kind of talking, asking questions and things like that. And I'll say exactly what you just said, Sid. I'll say let's all get on the phone, let's get on the speaker call, and we'll all talk about it. If you have any questions, I can answer the questions you have as well. Because a lot of times it's someone referring the questions to their spouse, whatever, and they're asking me. And again, I just revert back and I tell my story, man. So I was married when I got on TRT, and due to my hormone imbalances, the things that were going on in my life, my low T, I was embarrassed to talk about my low sex drive. It was wreaking havoc on my marriage. And that's a lot of the times what they're asking. And one thing I've noticed is once, male or female, but usually guys get on TRT protocol, everything else just kind of falls into place. It's like the reverse domino effect. Like things start getting better in their life. They're on a training regimen. They're getting up earlier. They're eating better. They're putting in the effort that they've made a commitment to this. So they're putting in the effort to make it better. And the wife sees that. And the wife wants to get on board with that. And it's amazing, bro. We can help two people out in the same place, save that marriage. Yeah, I wished I would have had that.
It's almost like, you have one spouse that decides that they're going to change their life, and the other one that decides not to, right? And or doesn't put in the same effort. Most of the time, what I see in my circle, because I've changed my circle dramatically, and now attracted to people that I know I can trust, and they get up early in the morning, they work out, you know, they're at service to others, right?
Yeah,
And they want to help people. That's my circle. A lot of times, you know, that's how we find our spouses. And if those two people, you know, need it, and they decide to do this as a family effort, it's also a great thing too, because now you have the husband going from not wanting to have sex
Right.
to really
Yeah.
chasing her around the house now,
Yeah.
right? And then she's like, "What'd you give? What'd you give?
Yeah,
What'd you
yeah.
give my husband?" You know,
Yeah,
and like, well, you know,
absolutely, yeah.
if you need a little tune, we can help you out too. You know,
Yeah,
it's been great.
And then the household grows, right? They start, they start feeling better. They start training, eating better.
Their
you know,
bosses see a more positive, energetic person. You know,
yeah, yeah,
it's interesting. You know, one of my favorite stories is I was buying these Porsches back in the day. I loved them, and I walk into this dealership, it's the largest one in the country, and I speak to the owner. I finally meet him. I'm really close with a sales guy down there. I'm like, hey, you know, it's an old Costco. That's how many Costco. There's like 40 sales guys.
Wow.
I'm looking around. Everyone's a little bit out of weight, and I said to the owner, I said, hey man, why don't you give me like 5 of these guys for free, and I'll put them on, you know, TRT. Cover their first round of TRT, and if they start doing better and you're getting more production out of them, you know, roll out a program for your staff, because you know the guy's obviously, you know,
Yeah.
has money that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
And I came back, you know, we talked about 10 weeks later, 8 weeks later, and he said, Sid, we're up like 5% on Porsches. This is insane with these 5 guys. Like, it's insane. And he rolled out an entire program,
Yeah.
you know, for their staff. And since then, you know, he's seen massive, you know, change in these guys. And it all starts once again with that blood work. So when the patients are kind of like on the fence back and forth, right? There's not too much research we can provide to them of like what's going to happen next, you know, and that's a hard part of the job. And what I mean by that is like, well, send me some information. Well, unfortunately, we have 195 medications. Like, what, you want all of it? Like, what do we do there? So when we're talking to these guys, it's really it's the hardest part of your job, I think, which is like the person who's on the fence. And you know, driving home and getting that blood work done is like really important. And if it's a affordable thing and you just can't afford it, tell us this is too much money, and we have options for you. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So we have the EZT option.
Yep.
So you know, if it's not in somebody's budget, you know, when I came on, my budget was not good. Like my finances were not great. Same kind of thing, man. You know, you guys extended to me a more affordable option, and I was able to get it going. And then everything else, like I said, fell into place. But it's just taking that first step, you know what I mean, and seeing what the outcome is. That's really it, man.
We've been doing that. Sid implicated this when COVID started. And we sat down. I remember the day he called me up and he goes, "Listen," he goes, "we have a lot of patients. COVID's going on. Jobs are stopping. People are getting hit in the rear end right now." And I go, "Yeah, for sure." And he goes, "And you know, the last thing they want to do is stop taking the medications because they don't want to start feeling the way they were feeling before they came to us, right? Blood work dropping, everything again, right?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, I'm gonna tell everybody, whoever's having a hard time, we got them through this whole process." And I said, "Wow," so that's huge, you know, and that's what we did as the company.
So we have you have to qualify for it, and you know, and it's a temporary solution. We give you up to 12 month through. It's not like a hardship program, but it's for someone that like really needs to get moving and start the process and understand it through a baby step program. And 99% of the people transition over to core medical within, you know, the first round of medication because their life changes, right? But you know, if it is a financial thing, we do have options, and you know, the option is more affordable. It's not as hands-on, but it's pretty hands-on, and we've just tried to find ways to make people have a solution, you know, and it's been great. So if you're scared of, you know, the financial commitment, call us anyways.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
And I mean, your entire dynamic of life is going to change. I really know a lot of people that have gone on testosterone, left being an employee, and become an employer, or gone on to testosterone and then been so much more effective in their workplace.
Yeah.
And the owner sees that, and now they're growing financially, and they're standing out, and they're getting in shape. You know, I mean, it's huge when you have a person that's overweight and all of a sudden they're in shape now, and everyone notices that. Wow, what are you doing? And they're happy, they're go lucky, they're energetic, and they weren't like that before.
Yeah.
It's pretty solid.
I always tell people you have to remember testosterone is a hormone, and there's a reason that's a blood range on it, right? And you want to be at the top of the blood range to be feeling like we were always feeling when we were growing up, 19s, 20s, 30s. That hormone takes dips, right? So when you were talking about the people coming in like, oh, I don't want to go on a steroid. Well, testosterone is not an anabolic steroid. It is a hormone in the body, right? So, but it got the bad stigma from, the bodybuilding years and, where I came from when we,
It's all your fault.
It's always my fault, right? I'll probably get a later indictment on this somewhere down the road. Like, hey, that was part of Mel's predicate actum. But, once they understand that and they hear how the hormones hold hands, right? Between the testosterone, the estrogen, the FSH and LH for men and their testicles and stuff. And then when, and I explain it to them, when you explain it to them like that, regular public understands it. They're like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
It's not. Then they tell their wives, babe, I'm not on steroids. And that fixes that old stigma, right? Yeah.
So, there was one thing we were talking about this morning was like the fear of like getting blood work done because they go to like the VA or they go to their GP, and the fear of getting blood work done and getting the same answer. You want to talk about that from us?
So I'll just tell you my story, how it went. I went in after I got out of the military. I was experiencing, a lot of the things that these patients are experiencing, and I didn't know what was going on. So I wanted to get the VA. I had all my health care through the VA. I wanted to get them to kind of, look at some of this stuff, look at my hormones and see what was going on. I was 36 at the time, and they were pretty much telling me I wasn't a candidate. I was too young to be eligible for testosterone replacement therapy. I got my blood work back. I was a 302. I think the bottom of the reference range is like 295, 297.
295 right now, yep.
It goes all the way up to like 900.
950. Yeah. We're at right now in the ranges, 950.
And the other thing too is, we talked about this the other day, but guys, your total testosterone is not enough to judge anything on. And you walk around, people, oh, my testosterone's 700. Okay, great. What's your free? What do you mean free testosterone? Well, that's your bioavailable testosterone. Guess what? Like that needs to be in line, because if that's suppressed and you have a 700 test, that does nothing for you. Yeah. In these hospitals, the VA hospital, your GPs, even some other specialists, they don't even check that. No. They're like, oh, you're fine, but how do we even know that's converting into your free? And it's wild.
What did I teach you, Jared? What did I say? You can have 1,000. You can have the top of the range. You can have 3,000 overall. But I'm just saying you can have that, and you don't have in the free testosterone's at the bottom of the range, or even that in the gutter under the range. And I tell these dudes, that's like your wife. You and your wife having $100,000 in the bank, but she only lets you have access to 10,000 of it. The other 90 is no good to you. You don't have that testosterone that's bioavailable into the bloodstream when you're ready to move and go. And that's a conversion problem, right? So.
And some of the times the doctor will treat it with testosterone right away, which isn't the right thing to do. We have something called a sex hormone binding globulin, and those get clogged essentially, and then the protein can't bind onto the cell in order to absorb to get to your bioavailable testosterone, right? So the first thing we do there is we treat that, and then we see what your conversion rate goes to. That 700 might go down to 300, and then the free goes up to 55. We don't know what your body's going to do. So there's a lot of stuff internally that you really need to speak to the right people on. But finish up what you were saying.
Also too is getting the correct blood work too. I noticed one of the big things is, I went through a general practitioner after I didn't really like the results, the VA was giving me. The panels that they were pulling weren't extensive enough, as you were kind of touching on, to see exactly what was going on. They're telling me my testosterone is within normal range. What else is going on? What's my cortisol? My cortisol levels were high, which was causing my estradiol to go up. They weren't looking at any of that stuff. So getting a more accurate picture, getting a broader picture, a more in-depth picture as to what was going on was really the key to tailor fitting a protocol for me.
So the big message here is when we do our blood work, it's super extensive, and we're not chasing numbers. We're treating symptoms, and we're analyzing why you feel the way. Because people, like you say, people aren't calling us because they feel great.
Right, right.
They're calling us because there's an issue. And, that, there's an overwhelming, concerning amount of people that on board with us on a daily and a weekly and a monthly and a yearly basis that should have been on treatment a long time ago. It's scary.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And think about what could have been solved in that period of time that they've lost.
Or we harp on this one for a good reason to be harped on. We see some people that haven't had blood work done in years and years, guys, and they come in and they do this extensive blood work with us. And we find out the bad news. Their PSAs are out of control. Their A1Cs are out of control. Then we're catching some stuff too. I mean, my childhood friend I watch, we know we just caught his prostate thing. So it's kind of scary when, in this day and age, if you ain't staying on top of your own health, the government ain't. Your doctors are only doing what they can do. You have to be your own advocate in this day and age. And that's what I tell the patients when I get a chance to talk to them. You are doing this the right way, taking it in your own hands. You're going to see on a piece of paper everything when that comes back on that blood work. No one's going to be able to date rape you guys. You go to Midas, you send your wife to Midas for tires. She comes out with a muffler, a new windshield, right?
Yeah.
Not happening here. You're going to go live. You know what I mean? That'd be little Mel like, hey, babe, anyways, it's so simple, right? No. To understand. You understand it. Everybody gets to understand it, and they see it, and they're taking their health into their own hands, which is very important nowadays, guys. Women,
Yeah, there's that adage, people talk about, no one's coming to save you, expect to self-rescue. And that's really what it is when you take this into your own hands to kind of try to get a better health and wellness for yourself, optimize recommendations, options to make that better health and wellness.
So one thing that it has made things more difficult, for people out there that don't have a solution like we do, is that the general practitioners, the VA, and a lot of other places, they take insurance for that blood work, right? And they only check what is covered by the insurance company because they're not getting paid regardless.
Right.
And then if they add on what our panel, there's no reasoning for them to be checking it. So then what happens? They get a bill in the mail for how much money?
Shoo, $1,400. So when I'm talking to a patient that comes in and they're telling me they have insurance and can we give them the blood stuff, I tell them absolutely. We'd be grateful to do that for you. But here's what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
They're not going to test this on a guy, these hormones for you, for a guy. They're not going to test these hormones. They call that cosmetic. It's like Lasix, right? Because the insurance company can't date rape the, big pharma and stuff like that. So I tell them, if you add it on and they do it all, you're going to get the bill. And I had a lady say, no, I got the best insurance. I told her twice, okay, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. We did that for her. And she called me back up, not mad at all. And she goes, I wish I would have listened to you.
Yeah.
Because I was cool with her, I never met her, just, over the phone. And she goes, I wish I would have listened to you. And I said, why? I remember her name. I said, oh, hi, Tiffany. She goes, $1,300 they charged me because I added all this on. I said, right. And I was telling you $299.
Yeah.
So it do it through the specialist. That's what we're here for. You know what I mean? We got that deal with LabCorp. We got that set up as the company, so
we're doing 40,000 blood pools per year. The reason why our medication cost is so low is because of our buying power. The reason why our rates with the labs are so inexpensive is because of our volume of blood work getting done. And the reality is this, like, Core Medical is not interested in making money on blood work, right? Core Medical is interested in the longevity of the patient. It's a penny business. And I'm super upfront with people about it. Go find it cheaper somewhere else with the quality of medication and care that we provide. Show me a place that has that available, and you just can't.
Not happening.
Because I wouldn't have Jason Redman. I wouldn't have Nick Kay. I wouldn't have Mel Chansey. I wouldn't have Byron Rogers. I wouldn't have Cody that put their name. They can go anywhere and work. They wouldn't put their name on this if they didn't feel like the customers were getting the best opportunity.
When we started growing and the influencers were coming in, and the thing that Sid did right from the beginning, I'm always talking about, but in business, he knows, he brought everybody down here to Boca, right? And stayed in his house or stayed close if they had their families and stuff, and showed them how we run it internally as that family, as that tight-knit. This is how we expect. When I came aboard and started bringing some patients with me and stuff, I was hard on the patient coordinators. Ask Sid. I'd say, Sid, man, I didn't get a good report about, so and so. I didn't get everything's changed. And Sid would say, you let them know. You let the fellows know, because I come down here. It's all it's fun week when I'm here. And he's like, you let them know. We did, and we brought the people in, and they got to see that first and foremost here. Loved it, because that's what they're about anyways. And then they go home and do the same thing, and it's cool that they get to, we get to do that together and see these new guys coming aboard, and the Redmonds and the new
Byron.
Byron
Cody.
and all the new relationships that we're making.
Yeah,
there.
it's great for Core Medical and my brother-in-law John Bernthal, because he just takes all of them and puts them on the podcast. He's like, "Oh, this is easy, great, thanks." He's had like I think he's had like 8 or 9 like direct relationships.
Yeah, he just has.
It's been great. So talk about the feedback that you get from those guys. And
some of the referrals that we get, man, from these individuals are the best, man. They're like-minded individuals. They want to better themselves. They're looking into something for their health and wellness. You couldn't ask for a better person to talk to. You know what I mean? To show them the way, to show them, kind of how we get started, how we do things, and it's awesome, man.
Yeah. So yeah, the ambassadors have been absolutely amazing, and I just it's important to me. It's important to Mel. It's important to the core community that you guys get to see who you're working with. Jared has just grown in leaps and bounds, and for me, when we have a new person come aboard in the educational division that he's in, it's not important. It's not important that they're signing up 90 people a day, right, and just running through. It's important. Like I tell everyone, pretend that person you're on the phone was the only phone call you have to make today, right? And then once you start focusing on that, you get really efficient with it. So at Core, I'd rather have a guy that really educates the person, makes them understand, makes them not answer their questions before they're asked. And that's the most important thing, right? Not someone who's just a fast talker. We can't have that in that division.
Work with us, no.
And the people we have there have super embraced that, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful part of things. And at this point now, it's like now you're so comfortable with the position, right? And people know, and when you talk to someone that you have that value that they need. And I want you guys to be able to meet these people and see their face and understand where they've come from. And how important it is to them to help you. So,
and on a personal level for me, because with my traveling and the way I'm going and the way this phone's going off, and I look and I see that somebody's got a hold of me through my DMs and they want to talk to me about Core Medical. I'm used to be where I could talk to them on the spot. Things have been getting a little bit crazier for me, as we know, right? So I have to feel comfortable with knowing that I can send this guy a voice message and say, "Hey, Mike, thank you, man. I'm on a set. I'm shooting. I'm doing something. I'm going to hand you over to my guy, Jared, or hand you over to my team. He's going to talk to you and get you set up. And then once it gets all set up, just throw me a call back like this. Throw me a voice text message back." It's important for me to know that I can do that and put that phone down, and it's a wrap. And I know that it got done over there. And then later that patient's going to be hitting me back and say, "Mel, thank you, man, for that voice message. And, man, thank Jared. What a cool dude, man. I'm on board. All right. Thanks. We'll talk soon."
They're the first impression of the company. It's the most
Absolutely.
important division by far.
Yeah.
And you've been killing it, bro. And I want to thank you for taking the time out today.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking the time out today. I thought he was going to knock you out.
It's only if he's doing the job. I got to pull him in. I told you, I got to pull him in. We're out, and he's doing his thing.
So thanks again, man. Keep killing it. And we're really grateful for you coming on board. It's been amazing. So thanks, dude.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you, Mel.
Hey.